My fiancée forced me to exclude my 4-year-old daughter from our wedding because she wanted a child-free ceremony. But 2 days before, I found an accidental email revealing her secret plan to bring her own kids. So I confronted her in front of 100 guests at the altar, and what I did next left everyone speechless. I'm 38 years old. I work in management at a mid-sized company, and what happened a few weeks ago still has me processing everything. You know, like those things you can't quite believe actually happened. I canceled my wedding literally on the day of the ceremony. And I know that sounds dramatic and super impulsive, but when I tell you the whole story, you're going to understand why I had no other choice. I mean, I simply couldn't go through with it after what I discovered. I guess I should start from the beginning. I met Rebecca about 3 years ago. She was 37 at the time and I was 35. A mutual friend introduced us at a dinner and honestly, we connected pretty quickly. Rebecca is very attractive, intelligent, works in human resources for a big company, and seemed to have her life super organized, you know? She has 2 kids from her previous marriage, and one 1-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. And from the start, she made it clear that her children were her absolute priority, which seemed perfect to me because I also have a daughter, Chloe, who was 11 back then. She's 14 now. The relationship with Rebecca was good at first, like we'd go out to dinner, go to the movies, normal couple stuff. Chloe met Rebecca about 6 months into us dating, and well, it wasn't love at first sight between them, but there weren't any major problems either. Let's say it was a cordial relationship but not super close, but I thought that over time that would improve, that they just needed to get to know each other better. Rebecca and I moved in together after a year and a half of dating. It was into my house because it's bigger and has a better location for the kids' schools, and things seemed to be going pretty well. Or at least that's what I thought. I proposed marriage about 10 months ago. It was at a nice restaurant, nothing super elaborate but romantic, and she said yes immediately. I was excited, honestly, because I thought we were finally going to form this united family, you know what I mean? The 5 of us together officially. But it was literally like 2 weeks after the engagement when Rebecca brought up the wedding topic, and that's when the first problem started, that I, being completely honest, ignored, because I didn't want to see the red flags that were right there. We were planning the wedding, sitting in the living room with a notebook and the laptop, looking at venues and stuff, and Rebecca suddenly says, "I want it to be a child-free wedding, adults only." I just went blank because, I mean, how is it going to be child-free if we both have kids? And she explains to me, well, it's not that I don't want our kids there, but I think it would be more elegant and less chaotic if it's adults only. We can hire babysitters to stay with them. Honestly, it seemed weird to me, like really weird, because who excludes their own children from their wedding? But Rebecca insisted a lot. She said she wanted a sophisticated ceremony, that the kids would get bored, anyway, that it would be better for them to be somewhere comfortable with someone taking care of them. We argued about this for like 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie. It was super tense. I kept telling her that Chloe would feel excluded, that it was an important day for us as a family, and Rebecca would counter-argue saying that her own children weren't going to be there either, that it wasn't personal against Chloe, that it was a style decision for the wedding. In the end, and this is something I still regret so much, I gave in. I gave in because Rebecca threatened to cancel the whole engagement if I didn't respect her wishes for her special day. And I, like an idiot, thought, well, it's just one day. After the marriage, everything will get better. It'll be different. I explained to Chloe about the child-free wedding about a month later, and the face she made, God, it still breaks my heart to remember it. She stayed quiet for a moment and then just said, "It's okay, Dad. I understand," but I could see in her eyes that it wasn't okay, that she was hurt. I promised her that we were going to do something special, just the 2 of us, the day after the wedding, like a full father-daughter day doing whatever she wanted, and she nodded but didn't look me in the eyes. I should have seen it coming right there. All the signs were crystal clear, but I was so focused on making the relationship with Rebecca work that I basically ignored what I was doing to my daughter. The following months were weird. We planned for the wedding to be in my parents' backyard. They have a big property with a garden and offered to host everything there, which saved us quite a bit of money on expensive venues. Rebecca was super involved in every detail. The flowers had to be exactly a certain color. The decorations had a specific theme. She changed the menu like 3 times. She was very particular about everything. I didn't complain because I thought that's how brides are, right? That they want everything to be perfect on their day. But something I started to notice, and this was like 4 or 5 months before the wedding, was that Rebecca was treating Chloe differently. It wasn't anything super obvious at first, like it's not that she was openly mean to her, but there was this coldness, you know? Like when Chloe would walk into the living room and Rebecca would barely greet her, or when my daughter tried to tell her something about her day at school and Rebecca would only respond with monosyllables without really paying attention. I mentioned it to her a couple of times, and Rebecca always said she was stressed with work or tired, and I, like an idiot, would let it go. 2 days before the wedding, literally 48 hours before, I received an email that changed absolutely everything. It was completely accidental. It wasn't even meant for me. Rebecca has a younger sister, Anna, who apparently added me by mistake to a group email that was only for Rebecca's family. The email was about last-minute arrangements for the wedding, and Anna was confirming the schedules for all the family kids to arrive early for photos. The kids. I read that email like 3 times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The email specifically listed Rebecca's 2 children, plus her nieces and nephews, like about 6 kids total, and gave instructions about what they should wear, what time they should arrive, where they'd be during the ceremony. I felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. Literally, I was paralyzed, staring at my phone screen. I took a screenshot of the email immediately because I knew I was going to need evidence of this. And then I sat in my office, E was working from home that day, trying to process what the hell was going on. Rebecca got home around 6 that evening. She was coming from a meeting with the wedding coordinator or something like that, and I had already decided I wasn't going to confront her yet. I don't know why I made that decision. I guess I wanted to be sure. I wanted to see if what the email suggested was really going to happen. That night, she acted completely normal, talking about the final wedding details, excited about everything, and I just nodded, while inside I felt this mixture of fury and disappointment that I can't even describe. The next day, one day before the wedding, I did something I should have done months before. I sat down with Chloe in her room. It was like 8 at night, and Rebecca was at her sister's house doing, I don't know what, last-minute preparations. I asked my daughter directly, "How has Rebecca been treating you since we got engaged?" And Chloe, my poor girl, started crying. She told me everything. How Rebecca had started completely ignoring her, how she'd make passive-aggressive comments about her clothes or her hair, how once she told her she should spend more time at her mother's house, my ex-wife's, to give Rebecca and her kids space. I felt like the worst piece of garbage in the world, listening to my daughter cry and tell me all these things she'd been keeping to herself because she didn't want to ruin my happiness. Chloe literally told me, "I didn't want you to be sad, Dad. I know you love her a lot. Can you believe it?" My 4-year-old daughter was protecting my feelings while suffering emotional abuse in her own home. That night, I promised her that everything was going to change, that I was going to fix things, and for the first time in months, I saw a bit of relief on her face. I didn't sleep at all that night. Literally nothing. I stayed awake in the living room with the screenshot of the email on my phone, thinking about what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to confront Rebecca immediately, send her a message and cancel everything right there. But another part, the part that still had a little hope that there was some logical explanation, I decided to wait until the wedding day. I know it sounds masochistic or dramatic, but I needed to see with my own eyes if she was really going to bring those kids after making me exclude my own daughter. The wedding day arrived. It was a Saturday. Perfect weather, blue sky, pleasant temperature, the kind of day anyone would want for their wedding. I got ready at home, put on the suit we'd bought months ago, and drove to my parents' house where the ceremony was going to take place. I arrived like 2 hours early because supposedly I was going to help with some last-minute details, and when I walked into the backyard, there they were. All the kids. Rebecca's 2 children running through the garden in elegant clothes, her nieces and nephews playing near where the chairs were going to be. Basically all the evidence I needed that I'd been blatantly lied to. My mom saw me arrive and came over, and I asked her directly, "Did you know Rebecca's kids were going to be here?" And she, with a confused face, tells me, "Of course, mijo. Rebecca told me like 2 months ago that in the end the family kids were going to come. After all, why?" That's when I realized that basically Rebecca's entire family knew about this. Everyone was in on the plan except me, and they probably thought I had changed my mind or something. I briefly explained to my mom what had happened, about the email, about Chloe, and she just shook her head and told me, "Do what you have to do, son. We support you." Rebecca arrived about an hour later with her bridesmaids, went straight to the room my parents had prepared for her to get ready, and I stayed outside waiting. The guests started arriving. There were like 80 people invited in total. Friends, family, co-workers. Everyone was happy, excited, taking photos, and me standing there in my suit knowing that in a few minutes everything was going to explode. When it was time for the ceremony, everyone sat down, the music started playing, and Rebecca came out walking down the aisle they'd set up in the garden. She looked beautiful. I'm not going to lie. She had a gorgeous white dress, perfectly styled hair, flawless makeup, smiling like this was the happiest day of her life. She got to where I was standing, in front of the makeshift altar they'd set up, and the pastor, a family friend who offered to officiate, was about to start with the opening words. I took my phone out of my jacket pocket, pulled up the screenshot of the email, and showed it to Rebecca without saying anything. I watched as her face went from confusion to panic in literally 2 seconds. Then I spoke, loud enough for the first rows to hear. I said, "Rebecca, you told me this wedding was going to be child-free. You made me exclude my 4-year-old daughter from our special day, but it turns out you always planned to bring your kids and nieces and nephews, right? I can see the email here where your sister Anna confirms all the arrangements for the kids." The silence that followed was deafening. Like, you could literally hear the wind moving the leaves on the trees. Rebecca tried to grab my phone, but I pulled it away, and she started with, "Matt, let me explain. It's not what you think." But I interrupted her. I told her, "There's nothing to explain. You lied, you manipulated, and worse yet, you've been mistreating my daughter for months. This wedding is not happening." I turned around and addressed all the guests. I told them, "I'm sorry to inform you that there will be no wedding today. I just discovered that my fiancé lied to me about something fundamental and has been treating my daughter badly. I appreciate you coming, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." Rebecca started crying, screaming that I was ruining everything, that it was a misunderstanding, but I simply walked away. I left the backyard, got in my car, and drove back to my house. When I got there, Chloe was in the living room with the babysitter we'd hired to stay with her during the wedding. I told the babysitter she could leave, paid her for the full day even though only a couple of hours had passed, and sat down with my daughter. I told her everything, about the email, about the confrontation, the canceled wedding, and Chloe hugged me and said, "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for choosing me." I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I'm not going to lie, it was a super emotional and liberating moment at the same time. The following days were chaotic. Rebecca tried to call me like 50 times, sent messages saying we needed to talk, that I had misinterpreted everything, that we could fix it. I completely ignored her for 3 days until I finally sent her a message telling her she had until the end of the month to get out of my house, that there was nothing left to discuss. She responded with a long message explaining that the reason she had excluded Chloe was because she thought my daughter was faking being sick during her engagement party months ago and that had disrespected her. This left me completely confused because, what? I talked to Chloe about the engagement party incident. Turns out Chloe really did feel bad that day, like she had pretty severe stomach pain, and instead of ruining the party, she decided to go to her room to rest. Rebecca apparently interpreted it as Chloe being dramatic to get attention, and from that moment decided my daughter was manipulative or something. It's incredible how Rebecca's mind worked. She basically created this whole narrative in her head without ever talking to me or Chloe about what had really happened. About a week after canceling the wedding, I had to go to the house to pick up some things I'd left because I was staying at a friend's place while Rebecca finished packing her stuff. When I got there, she was there alone and tried to have a conversation with me. She begged me for a second chance, said she'd made mistakes but that she loved me, that we could go to couples therapy, basically all the typical speech someone gives when they realize they've lost everything. I told her no, that there was no way to go back after everything she'd done, especially after how she treated Chloe. I explained to her that my daughter was always going to be my #1 priority and that any woman who came into my life had to understand and respect that completely. No exceptions. Rebecca started crying again, saying she could change, that she could learn to get along better with Chloe. But I had already made my decision. I collected my things and left. Rebecca finally moved out about 2 weeks later. She went to live with her sister Helen, the one who was also involved in the whole plan to bring the kids to the wedding. I haven't talked to her since then. Honestly, I have no desire to. I blocked her number, blocked her on all social media, basically cut off all contact because I needed to move forward with my life. Now, about a month after all this, things are starting to normalize. I went back to my house. Chloe and I are rebuilding our relationship that I had let deteriorate from being so focused on Rebecca, and we're planning a beach trip for next month, just the two of us, something I should have done a long time ago. My daughter is happier. I can see it in how she acts, how she talks, even how she sleeps better now that Rebecca is no longer in the house. My parents have completely supported me in this decision, my friends too, although some thought it was too dramatic to cancel the wedding that same day instead of doing it earlier. But the truth is, I needed that visual confirmation. I needed to see with my own eyes that Rebecca was really going to bring those kids after making me exclude my daughter. Because part of me still had hope I was wrong, that there was some explanation that made sense. Did I do the right thing? Every day I see Chloe genuinely smile. Every time we have a conversation without that tension that was in the house when Rebecca lived with us. It confirms to me that yes, I definitely made the right decision. I don't know what the future holds in terms of relationships. I'll probably be single for a good while as I process all this and focus on being a better father, but I'm at peace with that. The other night, Chloe and I were watching a movie in the living room, eating popcorn, and she asked me if I was ever going to try to have another relationship. I told her maybe, eventually, but that this time I was going to be much more careful, that I was going to involve her more in the process, that her opinion was going to matter because at the end of the day, we're a team, her and me. She leaned on my shoulder and said, "I'm good with it just being the two of us for now, Dad." And that's enough for me right now, I guess.